Hello, and welcome to another episode. This time, looking at the Frostgrave Cultists 3 box. Northstar were kind enough to send these over to me. So give them an unboxing, make up a few of them, and then paint them. These are an alternative style of the Cultists, very different from Cultist 1, and more in the vein of the Cultist 2 box. And out of the box, they are pretty much ready for turn at 28, or something like Morkborg. There are a ridiculous number of weapons on the sprue, including a chainsaw, which isn't really in Frostgrave, but I am glad he's here. Most of the weaponry appears to be re-implemented farming tools, and I'm a big fan of that. It gives it a bit of extra narrative, and it means these guys can be just used as militia or any sort of thing in a fantasy setting. Not strictly cultist, but your sort of crazed townsfolk and that type of thing. Then just speeding up the assembly. The plan with these being to combine them with the 10 cultists too, so I get a nice horde of 20, which leaves me 2 sprues for kit bashing and future projects. After clipping them out and sorting them into the various piles, I decided I wanted to try and repurpose the polearm, because it's positioned with the blade head down, which is an interesting choice, but I think it's going to be repetitive if you use it more than once. So I clipped the head off, filed down both the stumps, then glued it together using plastic glue. So he's now holding it the right way up. Then grabbing a random variety of heads and arms, I start assembling the rest. And this is honestly one of those kits where I don't think you could make a bad pose. It'd be quite hard to do so anyway. And I did a few bits of minor kit bashing, so the shield here is from another kit, which I believe was the Frostgrave Nulls. The minis also have integrated bases, which can be removed using a pair of clippers, or hidden underneath texture paste, depending on how you want to do it. I'm using the provided bases on these, and I don't like the mounds, so removing those. The kit seems to have 3 main design flavours depending on which heads you go for, so you get plenty of hooded heads, as well as heads which can be used as zombies or various infected townsfolk. Then you also get a few more kind of generic brigandy type ones. So depending on the heads chosen, it really changes the theme of what these guys are meant to be. And I decided to go for a selection, as I'll be using them as bandits, or a rioting mob in more of a horror type setting. Some of the arms are also intended to be used as undead, as they have exposed bone, so the kit does let you make zombies and stuff with them as well. Keeping the basing easy, so using some small pebbles and some Vallejo ground texture paste. Slathering a layer of the paste on, then pushing some pebbles in. Once the basing paste is dry, I prime the entire thing using black gesso. And so they would match up with the previous Cultists 2 I did. I basically just painted them brown. So starting off with a dark brown dry brush, then layering up through various shades of brown, going from red type browns to more greeny browns, and just alternating that between the clothing areas, so you wouldn't have 2 parts of cloth that connected to each other which were the same type of brown. The seam on the polearm was also annoying me, so I clipped one of the handcuffs and stuck it over the top. There's not too much exposed skin on the models, but they do have some very characterful faces. So starting with a dark tan colour, I then layered it up, going paler and paler, until they had some over-the-top highlights. Again, just alternating different browns, going from red to green, but aiming to keep it within a warmer palette. primarily used P3 paints for these, although in places I may have used some AK Interactive. They are both very similar paint ranges, although P3 have a slightly more satin finish to them, whereas AK Interactive are pretty much pure matte. To add a bit of extra variety but keep them coherent, I applied some of the different shades of brown over the top of a different shade, so it would come through a slightly different colour, but the same tone. Then using boiler black for the exposed weaponry, and any parts of metal. I've been trying to work on getting my faces better, so just highlighting the very top ridges, and the very most exposed details. Then for the basing, using dark brown, dry brushing the entire thing, then doing it again over the top with tan earth. With all the base colours down, I moved to some glazes, made from watered down AK Interactive paint. So this would fill in the recesses and add a bit of extra shading, focusing a dark brown on the underside of the models and the lower half. Then using a blue glaze on the weaponry where it was oxidised, and a red glaze on the face to highlight some of the pustules on this unfortunate fellow. I then got bored, so I sculpted up a Skeksis and gave him a quick paint job. Then moving to the basing, I took some tiny tufts and decorated them, using 2 different colours of 2mm tufts to really treat myself. With the basing done, let's give them a quick comparison, starting off with some Cultists 2, which I did leave the integrated tab on, but they are the same scale. Then a Wargames Atlantic Guard, which is a bit skinnier, and a Fireforge Games Soldier, who is a little bit bulkier. But they all look okay when they're next to each other on the table, and giving them a final shot with the Cultists 2 fully mixed in, so you have a lovely horrible mob. And anyway, thanks so much for watching, I hope to catch you next time.